Hello and welcome to the Red Room for our fourth installment of the Parliament of Fowls. So happy uh, St. Valentine's Day, Saint Valentinus Die one more time. So here in the Red Room, Red for Passion, we have our Valentine's decorations here. So just to make you comfortable on Valentine's Day, or uncomfortable if you like. Um, so back to our court of love, which is basically what has just happened. To recap what you saw in the third installment, the formal eagles had all actually I had it the other way around. The formal is the girl, right? The tercel eagles are the guys, and all three have vowed their had pleaded their case why they would be the best mate for the formal eagle, and so now it's up to the judges to decide. And the judges are birds too, categorized by, and this, for those of you who are ornithology majors, this may seem odd, but they're categorized by diet. Okay, we saw that in the section that I skipped over. If you remember when we first went into this garden of paradise, we get a catalog of all of the trees there, and then we get a catalog of all of the birds there, and the catalog of birds are organized by various features. But here, the judges, three birds are chosen to judge who should get the girl. And one bird, it represents each type. The waterfowl, the goose stands for the waterfowl. The turtle then votes for the in the name of the worm fowls, those who eat worms, and the cuckoo for the seed fowls, those who eat seeds. So this picks up about line 500. The ghost side, all this is not worth a flea. That which is not worth a fly that he's talking about is, by all this, what he means is the preceding arguments of the three tercels. But I kan skapa härav a remedia. And I will säga mi verdict fair and sweethe, fairly and strongly, I will make my verdict. For waterfowl, in the name of the waterfowl, I was chosen among all the waterfowl. So this is why it's a parliament, okay? Because just as in parliament you have representatives who express the voices of well, you've got two houses in the British Parliament, the House of Lords and the House of Commons, and in the House of Commons, each representative in the House of Commons represents a certain district. Okay, so here it's divided not by geography as the English Parliament is, but by species, and the species are divided according to their diet: the waterfowl, the seed fowl, and the worm fowl. And I was I me that fire and swede for waterfowl whatsoever wrath or blithe. So regardless of whether someone is wroth, angry at my verdict, or blithe, happy at my verdict. And I for wormfowl, said the fool, co. For I will of min own authority for common spede taka on the charge anew, for to deliver us is great charity. Ye may abide a wheel yet par day, quod the turtle, if it be your will a wicht my speaker, him were as fire by steel. I am a sad fool, on the unworthiest. A little the trope there of modesty is what he's using. I am the seed fowl, one of the unworthiest. That's part of the formalities of Parliament. You say, your unworthy servant here says this. that what he will, I know that well. Um, and little of koning, I don't understand a lot. But bet is that a wichtes tungeresta than intermitten him of such doing. Um, so nature promises a judgment from these three birds, but the birds choose another bird of prey, Fowls of Ravina. Um, it's not stated this way, but perhaps it's felt that seed-eating fowls and waterfowls and worm-eating fowls really are not peers to the fowl of ravina, in other words, a bird of prey. Uh, and so the judge for the Fowls of ravina turns out to be um, the falcon. Okay, so the tercelets choose the falcon to judge for them, and the falcon says this in line 534. Full hard were it to preva be raison, while loveth best this gentle formal hera. Okay, so having heard the testimony of the three tercels, he says it's hard to prove by reason who loves this formal best. Now, to us that may seem a redundancy to say prove by reason. We should just say prove. But what follows next in the plot should suggest why they put it that way, because there's more than one way to prove a case in law in the 14th century. And of course, it's not so much that this method was actually used in the 14th century trial by combat, but rather it was part of the literature. Okay, in the literature, very often that would be the case. The knight always had that option to trial by combat. Instead of submitting the proof to a jury, we leave the proof up to God. God will see to it that whoever is righteous will win the battle. Okay. So a knight would very often do that. So essentially, it continues the notion of might as right. Although that's not the way, of course, they would have seen it. They would have seen it as God choosing the victor to reflect who was right, who was in the right. So they agree to a battle. And the turtle has this to say, line 584. Maybe we should look at this whole discussion, lines 560 and following, of the nature of love, just like the literature of courtly love of Chaucer's day. The birds too make judgments not only in terms of who is best, but about the nature of love. The Spearhawk says, well, first of all, he wants to shut the goose up because the goose is just a goose. He says, "Pace," line 564. No talk cape every man, and hackneth which a raison he shall forth bring. Me wit is sharp, he lof no tarryinga. This is the goose speaking, sorry. I say, he read him, I advise him, though he were my brother, but she will love him, let him love another. Okay, so the goose is going to choose the mate for the tercel. I'm sorry, for the formal eagle. But the spearhawk says, no, wait a minute. No goose is going to make such a decision. Lo, here a parfat reason of a goose, quoth the sparrowhawk, so clearly in a sarcastic tone. Never mote she thay, never may she prosper. Lo, switch it is to have a tongue loss. Nu, padefol, yet it were bet for they han hold the pace than showed the nicete, your silliness. It lieth not in his wit, ne in his will, but soth is said, a fool cannot be still. And so the turtle intervenes and expresses a romance idea, an idea from the romance that says that actually it's expressed in the 16th century by Shakespeare's 116th sonnets, that in fact devotion in love is eternal. Line 584. Though that his lade evermore be stranger standoffish, yet let him serve here ever till he be dead. Okay, so it doesn't really matter whether the lady dumps you or not. You still serve the lady. The duck disagrees. Well boarded, quod the duck, be mean heart, that men should love and always causeless. That's ridiculous to love causelessly, without hope, without purpose. What is the point of continuing to love somebody who's dumped you? That doesn't make any sense. So this devolves into an argument. So nature has to, and of course it continues in more detail, but I'm going to jump to line 617, where nature kind of puts an end to the more squabbling nature of this argument, and she says, "No pace," line 617, "quod natura, I commande her. For I have had all your opinion, and in effect, yet they way never the nearer." You know, we've listened to all of this argument, and we're no closer to any agreement. But finally, this is my conclusion, that she herself shall have her election. What an extraordinary thing to do. I mean, that's almost unheard of. To allow the lady herself to choose her own husband. That's ridiculous. What kind of civilization is this, where a woman is allowed to choose her own husband? That's ridiculous. But that's what it says in. You've got to follow what's in print, right? It's in the book. It has authority because it's written by an author, auctorité. She herself shall have her election. And this is perfect timing, because when you see this, we will have just talked about the Wife of Bath's tale, where that notion is very clearly a large part of the Wife of Bath's discussion. She herself shall have her election of whom her list. Whoever she likes, she'll choose. Whaso berotha or blithe, there's that phrase again that the goose used. So just as a good judge makes his decision regardless of what anybody else thinks, so too the lady should make a decision regardless of what anybody else thinks. Him that she chaste, he shall hear a han as swede. Okay, so he'll be strongly bound to whoever she chooses. Okay, now nature, having said that, she doesn't scruple to say, well, if it was me, I would choose tercel number one. But it's up to her. The formal says, all right, I'll do it, but She asks for a reprieve. She asks for a full year to help her decide. This is line 638 or so. With dreadful voice the formel here ansvarade, mi richtfull lade, goddess of natura, sof is that I am ever under your gärde. I am eternally under your authority. As is every other creatura. Okay, and that's true. Every creature's choice only appears to be a choice. You're really under every creature. Every natural creature is under the authority of nature. And mot beoras, whil me lief my dura, and therefore granteth me firste bona, my first request. And min intente igual se rit sona. Okay, sona, the ancestor of our word soon, has undergone a degeneration in our generation. In Chaucer's day, it meant immediately, right now. But notice how that's kind of degenerated in our time. When we say soon, we don't mean right now. I grant it ja, quod she being nature. And richter non this formal egos back in this degree. Al mich de quain. Und to this year bedon, I axe respite for to avisa me. I ask, a short break for me to be advised. Okay, for me to think about this. And so nature grants it, but at the same time, since this is St. Valentine's Day, and since all of the birds of the world are met there to choose their mates, that's exactly what happens at the end. They all choose their mates, and they end by singing in unison a roundel. Now, a roundel is a French poetic form which is related to a rounds. If you think of some of the simpler songs you sang when you were a kid, like Row, Row, Row Your Boat, that was done in rounds. A roundel is characterized by repeated lines. Whole lines are repeated in a very specific pattern. So, and the pattern is so specific that it was easy to reconstruct, because if you look at your text, lines, there's 3 lines, 690 to 692, that are in brackets. Now they're in brackets because they were not in the manuscript, but of course everybody who knows the roundel tradition and knows the roundel form knows that fills those in from because they're simply repeated from earlier lines. So this is how their roundel goes. So all of the birds are reciting this, line 680 and following. No welcome summer. Summer is the ancestor of our word summer, except it's confusing because summer referred to the season that begins in, along about mid to late March, when things start to melt. Okay, so we call that spring. And summer we use for the later season, the season that comes after that. But no welcome summer with the sun softer that hast this wintris weathers overshaka. Okay, if you remember the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, we realize how natural to Chaucer this vernal language is, the language of spring, the expression of spring. No welcome summer with the sun softer that hast the winters weathers overshaka. Well han they causa, that is the birds, well do they have cause, for to gladden ofta, sith each of him recovered hath his maka. Okay, they rejoice because now they have, each one has a mate. Full blissful more I sing when they waka. No welcome summer with the sun softer, that hast face winter weathers overshaka, and driven away the longer night is blacka. And then that's the end. And so we end with this one last stanza of in the rhyme royal form. And with the shooting, when the song was dull, the song was over, the song was done. that foolish maiden at here flicht away, that fluttering. Don't you like that visual there? Isn't that cool, that the way Dr. Holmes does that? Everybody goes away, and the noise of all of that wakes Chaucer up. So now we, remember this was called the frame narrative. Now frame is on all sides. So now that we've reached the end, that's the end of the frame again. And so the internal story, the picture itself, is over. And so Chaucer wakes up. I woke. And other books talk me to. I went to some other books. I'm done now with the Dream of Scipio. To read upon, and yet I read all way. I'm still reading now. I hope, and geez, it's been what, 500 years now? This is incredible. 600 years maybe. I hope I wish to read so someday that I shall make something for to fara. Remember, he was looking for that one thing, and he never really told us what that one thing was, but he's looking for it. The bet and thus to read I nil not spara. I won't stop reading until I find that one thing about love that I want to know. Okay, and so what better way to spend the feast of St. Valentine than to read about love as we just have in 14th century English. Okay, so thank you so much for your attention, or even if you nodded off, that's okay, because if you nod off, you can dream about Scipio or about Chaucer taking you to a kind of a garden of birds. So until next we meet in class or out of class, bless you and good night.